Okay, so welcome to part 4. And in this part, what we're going to do is we're going to make the user profile form, the form to ask a question, and the form to answer a question. Okay, so it's a lot of code, and you can get the code out of the GitHub project, which will be updated, and that should help you. So I'm going to go a little bit fast in this video, but like I said, and try to give you a general idea what to do and cover the important parts. So first, let's just take a tour of what we're actually going to make. So here's the site, and we're going to register a new user. So I'm going to register this user, and we don't see any questions here. We could put a message here that says there's no questions, ask a question. But what we're going to do now is just look up here, and you see in here it says create profile because we don't have a profile yet. And this is one of the first things that we're going to be doing. So here, see I have my form, and then I save it, and then I ask for my profile, and it's here my profile instead of create profile. Now here I don't have a add question button, so why don't we put that in real quick? Well, let's get started on the moving it over, and we'll do that while we rebuild the site. So we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. So I'm gonna log out of here, and then I gotta turn this off because we're gonna want to start with the one that you've been working on, because this one's further down the road. All right, so here I'm gonna start this one up, and in here I should be able to see register, and when we register, what happens is we get this profile create error. So route profile create is where we're going to create the user profile. So here's what I'm going to do is go over here, and we're going to get our routes. So what I'm going to do is, to save a little time, I'm going to get all the routes that we need for this. So we're just going to go into web, and there's quite a few routes that we need. So what I'm going to do is just grab all these. In fact, I'm going to grab everything off of this project, and I'm going to come over to the new one, and I'm going to go VCS, and then I'm going to do, in this case, I'm going to make a part 4 just because I want to move faster through this video, but you should do each feature one at a time whenever you do your commits. So, or you do your branches. So here I'm going to go do new branch, and I'm going to make this branch video part 4. And I'm just going to paste this in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check and see what happens. And we're going to need to So now we have the route for create profile, but whenever we go to the route for create profile, we don't have a form. So let's go and work on that. So the next thing that we're going to have to do is I'm going to jump over to FAQ2 because that's the one I have all the code in. And we're going to need to get a profile form blade template. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go over and in my views let me check, make sure I got the name right. Yep. And then we'll take a look at the code here. Now, one of the things that we haven't done is add a Laravel plugin, and we're going to need to do that now because we're going to be using what's called the Laravel collective. And we want to get to installation. And let's see here, 5.4. And I'm going to put the link to this. And so here they have a 5.6, and we're on Laravel 5.6. So what I'm going to want to do is just do installation and take this composer require. This is requiring this module. So we're going to change this real quick to Laravel 5.6. I think 5.4 would work, but use 5.6. So I would just do. So what this is doing is just downloading that plugin so that we can use the helper method. We'll talk while it's downloaded. We'll talk about this. So when you're making forms, they can be kind of complicated with the HTML, and there's a lot of details. And so this module, basically what it does is it helps to generate the forms. And here what we can see is you've seen all this like extends, layouts, app, container, blah, blah, blah. And this is saying, here's a little trick that we do right here. This is important. We do this in all the forms. So if this form is in edit mode or not in edit mode, then we set the post route here to profile store. If the profile is already created, is not in edit mode, or is in edit mode, then we set the post method to patch. You see, this is generating this is opening up the form, and what this does is it passes in a record from the controller, which we'll see in a minute, for profile. And then in this case, in a post, this is an empty profile, And then in edit, this is a filled profile because in the edit mode, it has to have the data that's in the database being displayed in the form when the user edits it. So, and then the rest of it's the same. So it basically, you just have to have this if statement here that says if we're creating a new record, the form has to be a post, and we use the store route. And if we're doing an edit on an existing record, it has to be an update method and a patch method. Or sorry, it has to be a patch method and the update route. And then everything else is the same. This way we don't have to create a form just for new records and just for edit records. We can use the same form for edit and new records. So once I have this, then let's go over and take a look at create profile. And so we can go here, and it's not, the controller isn't firing. So let's go over to FAQ2 and let's go get some code out of here. So we're going to need to go up to the profile controller at this point. And in the profile edit, what we're going to have here is, so we're going to need a few methods here. So we need the create method. The create method, let's take a look at this. So the create method, it makes an empty profile, sets the edit mode to false because edit mode has to be set to false so that we don't so that the form is in the mode for a new record. And then we return the profile view and pass in edit. So this is how you pass in two parameters. So we're passing in the empty profile here and the edit. So let's go and take this. And then here's the store. Okay. So in store, what we do is, and I'm actually going to change this. I'll change it whenever I move. So we'll do these one at a time. So I'm just going to go to create over here and then open up the profile controller here and dump this in here, and we'll run it, and we're going to get an error. So profile not found. And so we're going to add use at and let's try it again. We're still going to get more errors because it's not going to work. Oh, there we go. So now what's going to happen is I type in Keith Williams and some text, and then it's going to post this data. So let's take a look at what happens here. So let's go Keith Williams, and I'm going to go over to FAQ3. And right now what we're doing is we're posting to store. So let's do a DD request all, and let's see how this works. And so here it shows all the form fields. So Keith, this is all the data for the form. Now, what we're going to want to do is whenever you submit forms, you need to be able to validate the data. So you don't want to just automatically submit the data to the database or anything like that. Excuse me. So here what we want to do, this request arrow all, that gets all of the form fields. So let's go jump back to the other FAQ2 and let's get the new store request. So here, what I'm going to do is go over to store request. And in this part right here is how you validate in Laravel. So there's a bunch of different ways to validate in Laravel, but this is the simplest way to do it. And this just says that this has to be required and alphanumeric. And alphanumeric doesn't include spaces, so I'm going to remove that because sometimes people have spaces in their first name or last name. And if we wanted to have a new field validated, we would just do body we took out alpha, so we can get rid of this. And what I would do is just put this there and change this to. And what this is it's the field name and a period, and then the error message for that particular requirement. There's a lot of different validation criteria that can be used, and you can look those up, but basically you can set the minimum number of characters, the maximum number of characters, alphanumeric, numeric, all sorts of email address, URL. There's all sorts of validations that you can set up, but we're not going to go through all those. So here what happens is that input validate happens. If this works, this method, if it validates, it continues. If it doesn't validate, it automatically sends the user back. So like, watch what happens whenever we do a validation now. So if I go in and press save, and then I type in so here's this error. And you might see this, well, you probably will see this if you just do this. See, it says add token to fillable property to allow mass assignment on app profile. So there's on the model, what we have to do is we want to go up to our profile model. And let's jump back over to FAQ2 on profile model. And what we do is I add this line of fillable. So basically it says these fields are fillable. So I'm gonna put that in there. Let's see if we get that error to go away. And we did. Because now we have my profile. Now, how did we get my profile, create profile to change? How did we change up the profile? And in the earlier video, you had removed the, you put a placeholder of a pound sign in the view for the main menu. Here, what we got to do is go down and get into that view. So let's see, view, layouts, app.blade. And in here, what's happening is this if statement right here says if the user has a profile, basically. So if the user right here, if the currently logged in user has a profile, then show their profile. And their profile has to be shown. You pass in the user ID, comes from the user ID here, and then the profile ID comes from the profile ID here, and that's what shows that it's that user ID and the profile that they have. So, and then else is, if not, then show create. That's why it says show create if there's no user profile. Now, the next thing that we're going to want to do, we're going to jump back over here. So if I go to my profile here, and then I want to edit it, edit is not working. So let's get edit to work. So the first thing is it's edit is not working because we need a route. So let's go over to FAQ2, and then I'm going to go to my profile template here, and we're going to grab this code, the card footer code with the profile edit and the parameters for the route. And then we're going to come over to here and then go to profile, and we should have, see, it has the pound sign in there. Well, we're just going to paste that in there. And then we're going to have to refresh the browser. And now we should be able to edit. But again, there's no edit form, so let's go and get that all set up. So what we're going to have to do is go back over to FAQ2. And we're going to need to get the profile controller. And we're just going to grab both of them. We're going to grab the edit and the update methods and move them over to FAQ3, and we'll go through them now. So I'm going to go over and so we're just going to replace this. And so like edit, here's the user and there's the profile. And you could do it a different way. So I pass in both parameters. And in some cases in the future, with different forms, we're going to need this to have both of them. But here I do user find user profile equals user arrow profile edit true, because this is now editing the profile. And so I pass in the profile and then the edit, and then that's what shows the profile form in edit mode. And then here is what handles the update. So I'm going to actually just get rid of L name here. And just have required. Then, oh, excuse me. Then what happens is that the request goes through user and profile, then profile equals profile find, and they pass in the profile ID that's coming in through the URL. That loads the profile. Then set the F name, the L name, and the body, and then call the save method. And then once it's done, what I do is I redirect the user back to the home page, and I put a message on, which is updated profile. Now, we haven't done messages yet, but whenever messages are really useful, and let me show you a quick way to do this. So let's just check that this is all working, and then let's go on to the messages thing. Messages. So FAQ3, and so here what I'm going to do is, oops. So I'm going to have to use let's see here. There we go. So let's change this. And let's save. All right. So we didn't see the message. Okay. So, and let me show you how to do messages, because in this version we don't have the messages on here, but messages are important. So they help make a little bit better user experience. And messages are actually pretty easy to put in. So what we want to do here is in FAQ, oops, 2, you see I have a folder called Flash. And what I'm going to want to do here is I'll come over to FAQ3 and I'm going to paste this in in the views. And let's take a look at it real quick. And so here, this is messages for errors. This is messages for just regular messages that are being sent, like the profile's been updated. And then these are status messages. So in your templates, you usually need to have these 3 files, or these 3 different types of messages, so that you can flash messages to the user, like if they've saved a record, or just to notify them about something. Now, in order to get them to display, what we're going to do is we're going to come over to FAQ2 and we're going to go into our app layout. And in our app layout, what we do is I take and I include them right inside the main area. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over to FAQ3, and I'm going to go to my layout, and come down here and paste this in here. Now let's see what happens whenever we save things. So I'm gonna So if I go to my profile now, edit this, I could just save it and see now we got this message across the top. And if you want to make it a little smaller, we could always just put div class let's see if that changes anything. And it makes it 12 columns, so it isn't all the way across, all the way touching the sides here. Now, the next thing I want to do is we need to be able to ask a question. So in order to ask a question, what we're going to need to have is we're going to need to have a link to the create question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over to my home.blade and where it says for each question as question, what we're going to do is I'm going to move over. I'm going to go over and let's see if I have it over here, my question blade. I'm going to change this over to a for else. Because the for else will let us, if it basically, if there's a record inside of it, then it'll print the questions. Otherwise, it's going to print something else. So like in this case, this is printing no answers on the question page. So here what I want to do is I'm going to take this for else and come over to home and then change this to a for else. And let's go back over here. So the next thing we got to do is an empty. So at the end of the here, we're going to do an empty. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this link and put it in empty because we're going to modify it. I'm going to take the float right off of it because I don't need that. I just need a button primary. And I'm going to make a route question create. And question create doesn't need a URL. It doesn't need parameters passed into it. And then I put a little message in there. And let's get that last little end empty, or end for else. save this. And so let's go back here and see what happens. So we don't have a question create route. All right, so let's go and add that. We should have, let's see here for a second. Oh, it's questions. So let's change this to questions. And let's see if we fire up now. Oh, there we go. And so now we have, there are no questions to create. Click to create a question. And we don't have the create form here, so let's go and get that. So here I'm going to go up to let's see here. I'm actually gonna, oops, I gotta go over to the other project. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna grab the answer form and the question form because we're gonna need both of those in a minute. So copy them and then so let's see what happens here. Oh, so we got to go get the controller. So let's go over to FAQ2 and get our controller. So we're going to need the questions controller. So we're going to need the two methods. It's basically, you need create and store for creating records. You need edit and update for updating records. And then you need delete for deleting records. And delete doesn't have a form, which we'll get into in a little bit. So I'm going to copy all this, move it over to FAQ3, and oops. So let's go and open up the questions controller. And we're going to replace these. And again, it's the same thing. So new question, edit is false, return view, question form, edit. And then the store again is validate that it has a body. It's required. Here's another. Let's make it so that you can have spaces in the question. So I'm going to delete the alpha. That basically, so required, and it has to be at least 5 characters. When body is required, body must be at least 5 characters. This runs. If it runs, then we're good. If it doesn't validate, then it bounces you back and puts the form, and then just returns the form back with the data in it still filled, but with a message that says that it hasn't been, that it doesn't pass validation. And we'll see what this looks like in a minute. here it pulls all the fields over to input, and we're going to have to update our model because each one of the models, whenever we do this request all, this is mass assignment, and we have to say what fields are going to be used for mass assignment. So I'm just going to actually fix that up right now. So we're going to let's go to the question model, and we need these two, and then the answer model should be the same. And so let's just go to question. I put this fillable thing in here. So, and then we don't need that. And then I'm going to go over to answer. I was experimenting with different ways to do validation. That's why I have that errors in there and why the rules are in the other one. So don't worry about that. There's two ways to do validation. One is on the model. There's actually three ways. There's one on a model, which is model validation. There's request validation, which is what we're doing now. And then there's form object validation, which is a more advanced way to do it if you're having more complex form validation criteria and actions. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and let's see what happens with question create. So now we got a question create. So here's the body. Let's type one character and see what happens. You see, that's the message, that's the error message that gets kicked back, and see it keeps it still filled out in the form. And then now let's put in 5 characters. So route question show not defined. And that's because we renamed everything to question. So let's just go and fix that. So let's go over to question controller. Oops, sorry, question form. So let's do question form. That's what it's going to be. So we're looking for now let me check this. Change that to patch. Put and patch are basically the same thing. Well, no, they're not really. Like put means replace the whole resource. Patch means update the resources field that is the edited field. So it's like put up replaces a resource. Patch will update a single field that is there. That is the one that's changed. So let's go and go back to here and see what happens. Oops, let me back that up. I was making the wrong change here. Hold on. And let me see where that was. That was in, see, that's home blade, route question show not defined. So we're looking in home blade. That's where the error happened. See, I see the home blade. So we're going to go over here to home blade, and it must be having a S here, so let's change that, and let's see what happens now. Now, we probably want to be able to ask more questions, so let's fix that. So like, do this a little bit differently this time. So let's go over to FAQ3 and let's change this. So we're going to still keep the empty text. So there are no questions to view. You can create a question, but let's move. I'm going to copy this and then I delete the link because I just want to have the text. And then what I want to do is I'm going to move that text for creating a question here. I'm going to just say create a question, and then we can do a pull or float right, and let's check out what this looks like now. So now we got a button that says create a question. We can type some text in here. Now we can view a question. We can't yet answer a question, or we can't edit the question, and we can't answer the question. So let's go and let's fix the question edit first. So that's going to be, we have to make the link work. So in some ways I let the errors tell me what I'm supposed to do, or not tell me, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I kind of like follow the errors through the program. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to add the link because I know that the button's not linking or clicking, so I'm going to add the link to the question view to take me where I gotta go. So to the question form or the edit form. So here I'm gonna need to get some code, and so in here I go and get question blade, and then I'm gonna need this card footer. So I'm going to come over, and that's going to carry my delete button with it. So we're going to take that over to the question blade. And let me just check that. So it's right under, oh, I don't need this because we put those in the thing. And then I got to put the card footer right under question body. And so we're going to replace all this. And let's take a look at this. And this is probably, it might give us an error. Oh, well, we got to delete. So now we got to edit, and edit doesn't go anywhere. And we got to delete, and delete doesn't go anywhere. So let's do the edit first because we've done that, and then we'll show you how to do delete. So here, basically, the key with this is that whenever the edit has to happen, I got to go to questions, edit view, and pass in the ID of the question that I'm going to edit. So in this case, I'm going to go over to question controller. Oops, I'm not in the wrong project. Question controller. And we're going to get everything. So we're going to get edit, update, and delete, and then we'll just go through all of them. So I copy it and save it. And let's just take a look at this. This is basically the same thing as the profile. So question edit, put the edit form in edit mode, then return the view, and you have to pass in the question and the edit. So this is the question that is, I do it a little differently. So I have the question coming up from here because I can instantiate the question by type hinting, and then I do edit true, and then I pass in the blank question. I pass in the question when it's put in here, type hints it, and this creates a question object. So like I don't have to find, like this is another, like sometimes you have to find and sometimes you don't. That's the thing, is like if it's only one parameter coming through, then Laravel correctly loads the object that you're asking for. So if like, since we're only passing in one question ID, it can load the question. Whenever there's more than one parameter that you might be passing in, I find that sometimes it doesn't work. And I've had some weird things happen with it. So I usually just manually load those. And then update, again, we're passing in the question. I'm going to remove the alphanumeric requirement off the body. So in case we have spaces, because spaces aren't considered alphanumeric. And let's just show you the delete too. So it's basically the same thing, request, input, question, blah, blah, blah. This does it all. And we actually don't need to do this one. And this just sets the body of it to the body field that's coming in through the form. This calls the save method. And then this redirects it to the question show, question ID, and we say, have a message that says saved. And maybe we can add a little bit of fanciness to our delete route here. We'll go down here. Message deleted. So let's take a look at this now. So we're gonna go back over here. Let's refresh this. Let's edit the question. Save it. See, it says the message is saved. Now let's delete it. And it says deleted, and it deleted the question. So let's go back to that. So you have to study the code a little bit, but the gist of it is edit loads the form, passes in the question that's going to be edited, update stores the patch request that updates the record. This request body, whatever fields are being needed to be updated, you pass them in, and then we do a save, and then we redirect route question show, and then we redirect back to the question that was edited and say that the record was saved. And then destroys the question. That deletes the question. So this is the question object that comes in. You call the delete method on the question model, and it's gone. It's deleted. So let's just go back into here and we can see that we can create a question, save it, edit the question, save it, and we could delete it, view, edit, and now we got answer question, and answer question doesn't do anything. So let's do the answers and then we'll be done. So answers is the most complicated one. The reason why answers is the most complicated one is because you have to relate your questions to your answers. Or you have to relate answers to questions. So, and that requires a little bit of extra effort. You saw that whenever we were making the unit tests. So, in here, what we're going to do is I'm going to add a, we have answer controller here. So let me go over and get into FAQ2. And just for saving time, I'm going to copy the entire answers controller out because it's basically the same thing over again, but we'll go through it, but we'll just save a little time here. And let's go take a look at the route for this because that's a little different. So we come over here and in the routes, these are our question routes. I mean our answer routes. See, we have them labeled. So we got answer create, answer show, answer edit, answer store, answer update, answer destroy. So we have the create, and see there's the question ID, answers create. But when we're going to show it, we have to have the question ID and the answer ID in the URL. And whenever we're going to edit it, again, you have to have the question ID and the answer ID in the URL as parameters. And then there's the edit. Then there's question ID, answer for a post for store, because a store is a new record, so it doesn't have an answer ID yet. That's what gets created after it gets made. And then we have a patch, which is to do the update, and we have a post. We have a delete, which is to do the delete. And so for answers, you pretty much, except for the create and store methods, you're always going to have the question ID and the answer ID in the URL. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is come over and we're going to want to activate that FAQ button. So we're going to have to come over and get some code. So we're going to come over to question.blade. And I'm going to take this whole section out for, actually I don't need to do that. So let's see here, for else. Yeah, I'll just take this whole column out and paste it in. So question dot blade, we're going to need all of this to change. So this is just saying, here's the create the question, and then we have answers.show, and we should probably test this out. So let's go and see what happens here. So let's refresh this. Let's answer the question. So I'm gonna type in I'm gonna save it. Oh, so it's saying body has to be alphanumeric. So let's fix that because we have spaces and we don't want to do that. So let's go over to the answer controller. So what looks like we're having is we don't want this for store. We don't want this for the validation criteria. So let's save it this time. And we're saved. So now we have here, because we already did this with our seed, it already shows up. So let's take a look at this. So we got answer a question, another answer. We can view it. And then we edit it. The edit button isn't working. Why is the edit button working? Because we didn't add the route to it, because we were getting errors if we would have had it for routes that don't exist. So let's go over and go to the answer.blade, and we're gonna need, let's get all of this. See, right now we have that pound sign in there, but we're gonna get rid of all that. So we're gonna put this in there. And notice how here we're deleting and we're sending in the question and the answer ID. And then the question and the answer ID. Let's take a look at the controller really quick. So this is an important point, I guess. For answer controller, so in the store method, what comes down, we go and we get all the records, and then if we have a lot of fields to assign, like in the other one we just had bodies, so I just did it that way, but here answer, I'm showing you another way to do it. Because our fields are mass assignable now, because we put that on the model, we can do this, which is answer equals new answer input. And we pass in the input, which is all the fields that can go into our form. And then what we do is we take answer, we associate the answer with the user. We have the answer and the question, we associate the question with the answer, and then we save it. That's just like our unit test, really. And that's why writing the unit test help you work out all these issues ahead of time, so you know you have working code to answer questions and associate users with questions and things like that. You come back, it comes back and use it. You're going to end up writing it anyway. You might as well write it in the unit test first, just to get that piece of code sorted out. So then we redirect question, and you see I pass in the question ID here because I'm sending it back to the questions being answered in this case. But in this one for show, when I'm showing an answer, I need to have the answer and the question passed in. The answer and question ID, because that goes into the form, which we'll take a look at. And then so here's the, let's delete the answer. So, and so delete is load the answer, call delete on the question on the answer, and I keep the question ID in here so that I can pass when someone deletes the question, that it's going to be able to redirect them back to the route, the question route. See, questions show requires the question ID to be passed in to go to the right question whenever it's being redirected. That's like the whole tricky thing with these forms and everything, is that you have to know when to pass the right IDs in to redirect it to a page that was the previous page that was going in, or to have a form that has all the information in the post URL or patch URL that is going to be used. So let's just take a look at what the program does now. So we can edit the answer. Now let's refresh this. Did I fix this? So we can edit the answer to graduate students. And then, so we're saving this, and it didn't show up. So let's see what happened here. So view, and then we got our question. And notice at the top the URL, question 802, answer 301, IS 601, teaches web development. And let's see if the delete button works. So we can edit the answer. So whenever we edit the answer, and then we save it, and it's not saving, it's just showing this. So let's take a look at why. So whenever I do this, I say view source, and so this is saying post. So we're getting edit mode. So let's check this. So our edit up, we don't have an update here, so that would be, so let's go and get our FAQ. Okay, so our update method wasn't in there. So let's put it in there just to show you how to do this. All right, so on the update method, what we're going to need to do is see what gets passed in here. So we probably got our question and then answer. So these are our IDs here. So let's just do a DD on, I'm mainly concerned that I have the answer because that's how I'm going to run the find method. And so let's do this. So we're going to save it. And we got 301 because that's the main thing I'm concerned. I got 301, and once I got 301 there, then what I do is I just say I might be able to do this. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to see if we can type hint our way to get the loaded answer in here. So we're going to refresh this and see what it looks like. answer, and let's see if what happens whenever we do a body on it. Yeah, so it doesn't, it's pulling null on that, so we can't do that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a find. So we're going to do answer equals find, I'm sorry, answer find answer, and then we're going to do dd answer, and let's check it. And let's try to do this. So dollar answer body equals dollar request arrow body dollar answer, and we're actually going to move that out of there. That's a little mistake here. So remove the typing because we don't want to try to find the object. So let's go and see what happens here. Oh, we didn't redirect anywhere. So we're going to redirect like this. So we're going to do this message updated, and then we need to do this. Because it's going to want all the parameters for the path to the route. If you don't do this, it's going to, like, so watch this. So if we don't have enough parameters to the route, let's see what happens. So we're going to go back to here. I just want to show you what error happens. Oops. Let's make it go answers. Edit answer. So we don't have an answer show. So let's check it might be answers. Yeah, so let me fix that. Answers show. Let's see, missing required parameters for route answers show. When you get this error, this means that you don't have the right number of parameters. So we got to put the right number of parameters in there. So that means that we got to have the question ID and the answer ID. So let's take a look at this. And there we go. We're updated, and we can delete this one. Answer question. Save it. Now, one of the things that we're going to want to do to finish this off is I'm going to come over here and just throw on the validation piece. So we can actually just go up to the store method and go down to edit. Sorry, update. All right, and so let's try this again. So we're going to try to make this fail validation. So we're saving this. We're going to come over here. I'm going to answer the question, put some characters in, save it. That's good. Then we're going to go here, and now let's edit the answer and leave only 2 characters in, or 1, doesn't matter. And then so it must be at least 5 characters. And there we go. And we can delete it now. And so now we can delete, and we have no questions. Let's just do a full test here. So we got the profile. We can edit the profile. We can save it. We can create the questions. And you can have your redirect people however you'd like. I just did it the way I did it. You could redirect whenever someone saves the profile to show them the saved profile, or you could send them like back like I do to the home page. You can put whatever messages you want. You can, with the redirects, you can control wherever the user goes, and we can answer questions as much as we want, and the application pretty much works. So this pretty much finishes IS 117, I mean 601, and good luck with your final project, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.